Hey guys, it's Sebastian back with another video, and today we're back with Lost Hombres. This is going to be episode 16, so we're quite a bit in our process here, and I'm happy to have you guys here. And today I want to talk a little bit about what I would call the mind, body, spirit, and a little bit about understanding a little more of what's happening in the world right now. And I feel like the problem that we're dealing with is that there's a lack of understanding and insight of how the world's kind of going right now and like what direction we're moving in and like what's going on with like different outcomes in the world and how really everything's a lot more connected than people understand, even like the human psyche. Like a lot of the issues that I see happening in the world is a fundamental lack of understanding of how the human experience works, especially in this realm that we live in called the universe, whatever you want to call this. There are some very specific things that I feel people are missing and don't understand. And that's what's helping keep this illusion of what's happening in the world. So, the more that we fundamentally understand how humanity works, how our systems operate, the better that we're going to have success as a species, as a race on this planet. So, I'm going to break down some things today so that we really can have deeper conversations about what's happening internally so that we can work as a system to improve outcomes. So, as I've talked in the past about energies, about the way human beings work, mind, body, spirit, everything's really connected in the world and in the universe. And energies and frequencies are really important to understand that that is how our system operates as well. We are a living system of frequencies and energies. Literally everything in you is a frequency and an energy to some capacity, right? So let's break down really what I think is happening right now. When we understand that we are spiritual beings in this planet, then we can really break apart the different parts of us and why they're important to understand the totality of what's happening. So right now, we live in a world where there are powers at B or in play that control the narrative of our existence. So before there were things like countries and states and boundaries, we were just living on Earth. Like we lived as a community of human beings in existence in Earth, right? Like we found fulfillment. We have a morality compass to some extent, right? We have a sense of good or bad. We have internal tools that already kind of guide us within this community, this earth that we live in. So there was a time where we didn't have borders or boundaries, and to the extent that we have them now. When you're born in a country, you are given a birth certificate. This birth certificate is the equivalent of what a cow gets or a calf when it is born. It is stamped with some kind of brand. This brand, what we call is a social security, or we call it a birth certificate, whatever you want to, consider it. When that cow leaves the ranch, leaves that place, they are brought back to this ranch. They are brought back to this place because that is the owner. Same thing if we travel to anywhere else in the world, we are brought back to our whatever ranch you want to call it, right? So they bring us back to our owners where they decide what to do with us. So we really have no choice in the way that we are being provided support, information, anything, because we are viewed as human cattle. We are not viewed as individuals, as humans, as entities. We are viewed as livestock. Because in order for the whole situation to work, they must find a way to use us for our energy, to profit off human energy. So when we look at the difference between a ranch and a sanctuary is at a loss of profit. It is not profitable. It's not intended to be profitable, but I'm willing to bet The animals in a sanctuary or the cows in a cow sanctuary are going to be a lot more content with life, a lot more at peace and balance because they're being allowed to be the most authentic version of themselves and be in a homeostasis capacity. If you look at a cow at a cattle ranch, they are not going to be at the same level of calmness, of health security that a cow that is living in a sanctuary. So let's look at how a cattle ranch is being operated. So when you look at a cattle ranch, well, they look at profit margins. They are trying to get the most bang out of the buck of this calf, this cow. So they're going to provide with the most limiting resources possible to get the most out of these cows. So they're not going to worry if the cow wants to get milk. Does it have the capacity to not get exhausted while it's getting milked? Does it have the capacity to provide me with what I want from this cow? And once that cow is not living up to quality standards, what are they going to do with it? They're going to discard of this cow. This cow is no longer useful. They see this cow as a deficit, not as a living creature, but as a deficit within the financial system that it's trying to perpetuate. Well, what's the difference between that and what we're doing? I mean, think about when the cows are being put in places, there is limited space in those spaces, but there's enough space to, keep them content enough to get the profit, but not enough for this cow to be fulfilled, right? Not enough for this cow to really know its self-worth or like enjoyment, right? It doesn't have balance in its life. It's being used to its maximum capacity with the most minimal amount of support in the back end. So why is this important? Well, when you look at the way this economy in this country works, it's very similar to the way a ranch works, where again, they constantly are talking about profit margins, constantly talk about the job, the economy, the stock market, investments, always the investments that this ranch has. Here's the issue with that, though. When you live in a situation where you're only being viewed as that, again, then anybody who does not live up to a certain quality standard, right? And who set that? Not the cows, but the people running the ranch set the quality standards of what a typical cow can handle to get the most out of them, right? And so they're putting that propaganda of like, if you're a good cow, you can get this done. If you're right, so they're even brainwashing to some extent us to live like these. And so look at how apartment buildings are built. Look how a lot of these houses are built. All these situations, again, closing them off, keeping them into their little niche corners, and farming the most possible out of them to gain the most without, again, giving them. When's the last time this country asked people, hey, how are you doing? How's your happiness? How's your fulfillment? Hey, what could you use more to be a more fulfilled person, right? Again, meeting your holistic needs, your humanistic needs. But no, that is not what's happening in this country. They are not asking people, hey, what's going on with you? Hey, how are you feeling? Hey, what's going on internally? They don't ask us in a sense as, hey, overall, how have people been? How are people operating? They don't ask people to then again reflect on what their positive experiences have been, what are their negative. They're not asking them to, hey, how can we change as a government for you to serve the people more? Or again, right? It's all about what? How profitable the economy is, how much they can get the most out of their people. Not again valuing the humans, the person, but again, what profit, the energy. And what we say again, time is energy, right? Or time is money, right? Time, energy, and attention. Those are all financial things. So when they're paying you for a job, they want your time, energy, and attention, right? When someone's looking for you to work for them, they want your time, energy, and attention, your spirit, right? So when we talk about spirit, when we talk about people's fulfillment, their soul, right? What we're talking about is time, energy, and attention, the thing that you need to do anything, right? So if we know that time is money, time, energy, and attention could also be considered money, then when we always put value at profit, what is profit? It's how much spirit I got out of people. It's how much soul I got out of people. So really what they're talking about is we get the most soul out of the people that we harvest. That's really what it comes down to, is how much are we profiting of these people's misery to some extent. So we really need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? What is our purpose here? What are we gaining from these experiences? Because again, if we don't value ourselves, then we're just being seen as cattle. We're just being seen as people that are being harvested for, again, their time, energy, and attention. Now, what's even more interesting about this, if you have enough money, enough power under your belt, you aren't limited to where you're at. You get to go wherever you want. You get to just be a part of any community because you have the power. But where does power come from? Again, it comes from people giving you their time, energy, and attention, their soul. So we empower people with our own energy, our own force. For example, why can for someone empowered, like, oh, I can have somebody do that. I can have somebody do that because they have access to a lot of people who are willing to give them their time, energy, and attention. So when you look at people in power, people that have some kind of, dynamic, well, it's because they know people. They're well connected. They have people that are willing, and then those people have people who are willing. So it's like it's a chain of empowerment, and the only way people get empowered is by, again, utilizing other people's energy, not their own, but what other people are willing to give them these things. That is what's happening right now. We have a system built on human energy, on humans' willingness to give up this energy, on the illusion of free will, the illusion that you're in control, because the reality is they're in control. If you have enough money, you don't have borders. You don't have boundaries. The world is your boundary. You go wherever you want to. Whatever country you want to go to, that is your home now. Because again, you have gotten out of the system of being harvested for your energy. So how does this happen? Well, there's a couple things. First of all, let's talk about education, right? And I got something for you guys. So we know that the school system, the way it operates, has not been around that long, okay? This whole idea of going somewhere, doing a test, getting graded, this concept has not been around that long, less than a couple hundred years, if that. So this is a new system that we're implementing. And we also know that this system is heavily designed to encourage people to be factory workers. There's a lunchtime, bells, whistles, rings, instruction, and feedback. Can you be a good student? Can you be a good little worker? Can you get all the things done? Can you take feedback and then work on it and then be that little worker bee? That's why general ed does nothing for you. It teaches you absolutely nothing. What does all that information really do? Nothing. But it does show that what? You have the basics that you can, like, again, you need your GED, you need your high school diploma to get jobs because they need to know that you have these basic requirements met. Okay. So the problem with this system, though, is okay, great. We make factory workers. Again, what's a cattle? What's a cattle ranch? A factory. It's an animal factory. I'll get to that too. So we build factory workers, but then on the other hand, what's happening in this economy? There are no more factories. That's like producing beef for a society of vegans. How are you going to benefit? What are you going to do about it? You have all this beef and it's going to go to waste, and the vegans aren't going to be happy with that. Why? Because we're not living in a situation where we even have jobs for these people that are being factory trained to even go into. So we already have a failing system because the system itself has outsourced it, the only thing that it had to feed into itself. And so now that's not even an option. And again, you're being told you're the problem. You're the issue, not the ranch. not the way the system operates. Again, focusing heavily on profit margins and outcomes that benefits the what? The ranchers, not the cattle. It benefits the ranchers, which is, again, this is what the system wants. It wants to keep benefiting the top. But the problem is, at some point, if your cattle can't sustain themselves, there's no ranch to be had here, right? So what used to work, this factory pipeline, when there was factories, would semi-work. Why? Because we had an outlet for these people. That's not the case anymore. And so now you're running into a situation where we have a bunch of people that are being underutilized, that don't have a good sense of purpose, because the one thing you train them for is not here anymore. It doesn't exist. So we're having a bunch of people trained in something that they're not able to even do anything with. That's the economy that we're living in right now. A bunch of people that have been prepared for something that they can't even do. And then we're not teaching people about trades. We're not teaching people about these other things, these self-fulfilling things. And that's causing them what? To go on a downfall as well, to lack that. Why would I trust the system that just educated me on a job that I can't even have? How much am I going to feel I can trust, again, the people up top? They're not even allowing me to live a fulfilling life. Now let's go back to the rancher for a second and explore that for a moment. What are they trying to do nowadays? Genetically modify the animals to grow faster, to mature faster, right? So they can harvest them for everything they can until they're not useful anymore. What are they doing to us? They want us to grow up faster, which, again, they want kids to go in the mines. They even want to reduce the age that we consider adults so that kids can get to working faster. Let's pump the food with hormones so they can mature faster. They can become adults faster. They're almost racing to the bottom, literally the bottom of the food chain, getting to children, getting to minors so they can get them what? Get their energy working, get that movement going to benefit who in the end? The people up top, right? You know who's not trying to get things to mature faster? A sanctuary. Gets what things actually appreciates happiness, contentness. A sanctuary, not a ranch. We live in a ranch. We're being used as a ranch. We're being manipulated and brainwashed into living like ranch animals. Now, how do we break this system? Well, we go back to what we talked about energy, about fulfillment within oneself. When you live in a system that doesn't appreciate what you bring, right? Well, then you feel a little lost. But the idea is that you're trying to fit a mold that is not natural. Just as much as it's not natural to ranch things to death. A lot of ranches actually cause biohazards in the environment around it. What do cities cause? Biohazards, chemical hazards, right? Because they're not natural. Cities are not natural, right? They're built, they're enforced on the natural environment that's already there. Just as much as a cattle ranch isn't natural. And some of the toxicity that comes from those ranches poisons the water nearby, poisons the ground nearby, because the ground was not designed to sustain that. It is unhealthy. It is unnatural, right? So we have to ask ourselves again, why are we living in a situation, in a community where they're not being built around natural, ongoing things that already exist? Because, again, in order to perpetuate a state of illusion, in order to keep this thing going, we have to keep them blind. They can't be seeing the truth. If you look at the movie of the Lorax, it's the same thing. Their little city looked all perfect and happy, but you look right outside and everything's in disarray and being destroyed. You know, when we're saying people aren't being fulfilled enough, they don't even know what fulfillment means. They don't get it. They don't understand. You're being told that fulfillment has to do with how much milk you produce, and the amount of milk you produce gains how much you get back, right? So again, your worth is what the system is creating, even though those cows aren't even supposed to be milked that long, right? They're not being bred to be killed and slaughtered. Their whole existence is literally to die, What is our existence? That's why some people start to kill themselves, because they've lost purpose. They believe that they're only good for what the system has created. It's like the robot. What is my purpose? To pass the butter. Oh my God. Once it realizes that that's all it's for, why is it alive? Why the sentience of it just turns on and says, that's what I'm here for? Well, what happens to adults who are literally being utilized to their full capacity and not being provided an element of happiness or fulfillment, and then they're feeling hollow, like robots, robotic, because that's a machine. That is the machine that we're being pushed into. Now, when we talk about spirituality, when I talk about those things, when I'm exploring energies and stuff, there's a reason why they're taking away emotions, individuality, and your ability to what? To fend for yourself. They make you reliant. So they take away feelings from childhood, instructions, take away any kind of, like, again, emotional dysregulation, taking away part of your humanity, or what I would call your connection with your higher power, your feeling state, your intuition, your instincts. They want to take away feeling, right? So first they're going to take away feelings. So they do that from a young age, where they say boys shouldn't do that, you shouldn't be like that, men don't cry, tough kids don't cry, right? So they take away you're being a crybaby, dramatic, right? They want to take away feelings. So feelings is the first thing that goes away, okay? Second thing they want to take away is individuality. So in my perspective, God made everybody the way they are because that's the way your DNA was sequenced, right? We didn't pick that. It was picked for us. So it's certain traits that we exhibit, our personality, our soul, right? Whatever's coming out of us, that was not picked by us. That was created by something. Something decided these are the traits you're going to have. These are the abilities you're going to have. Something beyond my understanding has picked those things for us. But what's happening is they are taking away individuality, which is, again, it's everywhere. Look at how many people try to have the same nose, the same lips, the same face, the same whatever. They're all trying to look the same. They're all trying to be homogenous. They all want to fit a narrative, right? And so the more that people want to fit this thing, the less personable they feel, the less they understand themselves, which, again, the only universe you live in is your own, right? And so you're being taken out of your own element and being told to be something else, because this is putting the external desire outside of you, which is driving you to do things that you wouldn't naturally do. Because if you knew how to fulfill yourself, you would find your own things to fulfill you. You would find your own passion, hobbies, and interests, the things that you enjoyed. You would be looking more into those things, because that's where your desires are. That's where your fulfillment comes from. So you're going to look for things that you enjoy, because that's how you were created. That's how your soul was made, whether your favorite soda, the favorite movie you have, your favorite people. Those are things that you were already created to enjoy. You just hadn't discovered them yet. But the creation of you being that person has been there since the beginning. You were this person. You just need to learn to accept the person that you were created to be. So what they do is they take away people's own acceptance of self. They manipulate this information so that you crave the need of others, so that you keep looking to fulfill this cavity within you. But then that only perpetuates your consumption state and not your fulfillment state. So you keep trying to be something you're not, something that you don't feel internally, so that you never fully reach a sense of satisfaction, because it was never for you. If you're doing something for you, you will reach a sense of satisfaction at some point, because you're like, yeah, I feel good about that. But if you're always trying to reach outside of yourself to fit this sense of accomplishment, then you're never going to fulfill that craving, that hole within yourself. You're going to live in a perpetual state of anguish, because you never healed the hole in you. This hole in you was never filled. So 6 to 11, you have people that are struggling with identity, their fulfillment, their heart, because, again, they have been had this taken away from them. Again, whether it's through schooling, like like some cultures, they literally make all the kids the same. Like individualism dies, right? You must do this, and they make fun of you for, and it's like everyone must like this. And again, creating a very external consumption type of environment for those people. So they live in a perpetual state of, I have to be better, I have to do this. Again, a consumption state. So first, we're going to not teach feelings, because again, feelings is the connection to higher power, like your intuition, and they take away your spiritual side, right? They take away your spirit because they want to make you like everybody else, homogenous. They want to take away individuality, right? So one thing I want you guys to think about, anytime you read a really good story, one of the things that elements of a good story is that the characters are well defined in their own person. Right. So remember, in order for you to tell a good story, in order for you to live in a great story, if you want you to live a great overall story, you have to have characters that are well defined in themselves, that really know who they are, right? Including yourself. So you really need to have an understanding of, this is who I am, this is what I represent, this is what I want to share with the world, so that you can continue to feel empowered in your own story, in your own version of whatever this story is. So building up your character, building up your own identity is a healthy component to having a fulfilling life. So we want to make sure that we're engaging in our personality and our individuality. Okay. The last part is the stress brain, right? Well, what do they do there? Again, they create an element of dissatisfaction always. There's always, I could do better, I can do better, I can do better. So it's hard to balance out that, oh, well, you had 10 minutes here, you had 5 minutes here. Like, it's hard to balance out how much time I need to put into something. So I'm always in a perpetual state of stress, which makes me more productive. So they want us to be super productive, right? So they take away our sense of what? Satisfaction when it comes to fulfillment, like filling out my productive brain needs. They take away our individuality. So I always feel like I need to be someone I'm not, consumption. And they take away our feelings, so that I always am in my craving. I don't know how to feel. So I don't know how to regulate. So I don't know how to, and again, I'm willing to work way harder. I'm willing to consume a lot more, and I'm willing to lose myself to whatever I'm being told. I'm able to be manipulated because I don't have a good sense of self. And that's the system we live in. We live in a system that doesn't want you to be in your feelings, because then you're in your cravings, doesn't want you to know who you are so that you're more easy to homogenize, and doesn't respect stress or outcomes, so that you continually use your negative energy, to not get things done, and then feel a negative outcome due to that struggle. So then you're just in this perpetual state of like, okay, on one end, I'm going to keep wanting to move forward, but I can't now because I don't ever feel like I'm doing good enough. On one hand, I need fulfillment, but I'm just kind of like consuming whatever, right? Not really what I want, but what's available. And now that I'm being told what I should want too. So my mind's being hijacked, my body's being hijacked, and my soul's being hijacked. And that is the world that we are living in right now. There's a lot of hijacking and programming going into the system. Again, separating children and parents from a young age, putting us in different groups and categories, and making the system so that you have to earn your keep, to the extent that even if you do all the work you're supposed to, it's not a guarantee. And then again, oh, oops, you didn't get it. Oops, it just happens that way sometimes. So it's not even a consistent outcome. Even when you do try to meet the needs, that they don't always pan out. And again, that's the way life works. That's just tough. You work your ass off, you go to college, you do all those things you were told you had to do. It just didn't work out that way. Right? Again, your energy, your time and attention should be the most valued thing in this world, because that's your spiritual energy. That's your spirit. And it's being told that it doesn't matter because you didn't meet a quota. And now that you didn't meet a quota, you're not going to get that fulfillment that you've been working this entire time for. And so this is a core problem that we're dealing with, is that people aren't able to meet their fulfilling needs, right? They're not able to find their happiness within the stress realm, within their fulfillment realm, and within their confidence realm. And so these three elements are just destroying our society. It's making people more reactive, more impulsive, more calculated, less connected, right? Because they're literally disconnecting you from your human elements to make you into livestock. Because again, you're alive, but they just see you as a stock. That's why they need people to keep having babies. That's why they need people to keep creating. So there's a consumption in this network. You know what they're not worried about in a sanctuary? How many cows are being born, because they're not trying to farm them. But in a ranch, we care all about how many babies are born, right? A rancher's not going to want their animals using contraceptives the same way. You know, like if you wanted to allow people to like make judgments for themselves, right? If the cow doesn't want to get pregnant, they should, they would have the right to in a sanctuary, right? But not in a ranch, right? And again, what are they doing? Oh, take the best of the best and put them together so we get more profits in the end. That's the problem. We are living in a spiritual warfare where they are taking away our connection to divinity, our connection with reality, so that they can use us to get their fulfillment needs met without actually having to pay us the appropriate value of what our soul is worth. So again, we live in a system where it takes away your ability to regulate yourself from a very young age. And then when we become adults, they blame us for these things and they perpetuate our issues by, again, blaming us for our lack of what? Regulation, responsibility, all these things. The same thing you could say about Coca-Cola with plastic bottles, right? They don't have to make drinks with plastic bottles. They don't have to do those things. They could choose to use a lot of other techniques that wouldn't require so much harshness on the planet, but that's not going to happen. Because again, they like to perpetuate, oh, recycling is not our problem. It's the consumer's problem. Just as much as toxic parents don't take blame for their lack of emotional support, stress support, and individualistic support, right? Oh, well, you were fine. Oh, well, you should have made better choices. Oh, you should have told me. Oh, they're always going to find a way to move the goalposts so that you are invalid for what your belief system is. And so again, a lot of toxic governments act like toxic parents. They will beat you and then say that never happened. And then all you do is focus on that. So there's not a lot of difference in the way that parenting and the government should work, right? Again, it doesn't mean that the kid's going to have a best day ever. But again, the government should support a kid as much as a parent would, right? Where, hey, you didn't mean to, I'm going to work with you. Or, hey, you know what? I can tell you're going out of your way. I'm going to have to crack down. But the idea is that it's supposed to be like a healthy version of a parent for us. What we're dealing with right now is an unhealthy parent, right? Oh, you're just complaining. You're just mad. You're just this. Always avoiding, again, the consequence of their responsibilities. They're not willing to take on responsibilities, which is leaving them at best a deficit with everybody they're interacting with. So how do we regain these things? Well, just as I said earlier, when you willingly give up your time, energy, and attention to people, you are empowering them and you are losing value. So the first step we have to do is we have to cut out the people that we were giving our attention to, and we have to refocus on ourselves so that we can find the fulfillment within us, right? We have to invest our time, energy, and attention into who we're becoming so that we can have the best outcomes for what we want and our focus as we get, through our development, as we are getting more mature. We're going to be able to focus on ourselves, empower ourselves, build our value. And that's the first step in taking away the value that you were giving others. Because if I sit there and work on someone's project, I'm just giving them value and I'm taking away from me. Another way we can look at like a couple things. So let's talk about like dark energy and stuff. There's a couple things that I like to kind of associate with the way energy works and the way people can drain you. So on one hand, I would say we have things like, so once people have lost their soul, their energy, their connection, there's a couple things that end up happening. Some people turn into parasites and some people turn into predators. Parasites are people that will leech off energy and act like a victim. So these are people like, I'm going to die without you. What would I do without you? That's a parasite. A parasite wants to continuously drain your energy over time, and they're just going to keep being a victim in their life. So the more that you just allow them to play that victim card, and the more you give into them, the more they're going to keep living within that emotional state. So that's a parasite. Another one is called a predator. Predators are people that act really nice, that put on a good show and lead you on, and then use you to the most of their capacity that they want and then discard you. So, parasites, predators. Parasites, long term drainage. Then you have predators in the moment. They might give you a buildup, but they're going to start. When they take their chance to bring you down, that's it. You're going down. You're going to go down, right? So they're going to choose your fate to some extent. So we got to keep an eye out for predators and parasites. I tend to find predators tend to be more people in power, while parasites tend to be people that are on the other end, right? So just be aware. Do I feel something with this person? Do I feel a negative energy with this person? Is this person draining me slowly over time? Or do I feel this person's way too fucking nice? Is this person just over the top, being friendly? Are they having a problem? So when you analyze this and see, hey, this person's having an issue, then you're going to start getting what? The bad vibes, the bad things. And that's your ability to regulate, your ability to put boundaries, your ability to say, you know what? I need to like move forward and move on from this. So yeah, we got to really pay attention to what energies we're dealing with and how they could potentially impact us in the future. So we have to protect our time, energy, and attention, our soul, our spirit. Again, take care of the stomach, take care of the heart, take care of the mind, so that you can stay sharp and continue providing support where you need to with the people around you, right? So yeah, we can get into the situation where our energy, if we don't take care of it, it imbalances, and those people start to drain those around them. That's why misery loves company. So you're going to have people that are very negative in nature, and they are going to be very absorbent of other people's energy around them. Again, people that don't want to take responsibility for their change, people that want to avoid problems and make other people issues. So it's important to just address things as they come. So when it comes to energy for ourselves, right, we want to make sure that we're igniting ourselves and focusing on what we want from life. So first focus on what I would call the positive energy. So that's the anxiety. Again, anxiety increases the heart rate, just like an electrical signal. So it's going up. So I call positive because it's going up. It's going into the realm. Well, that's going to be the stress energy. So how do we get rid of stress? Well, like we stress clean. So as we work on projects, as we work on things, get through them, we're going to automatically start reducing our stress over time because we're engaging appropriately with productive needs. So I'm going to start reducing this positive energy. The negative energy is like the depression, right? I need to find things that are going to draw me to them to get me out of this negative state. So I need to find fulfilling things that are going to help me get up and go do things. So positive energy, I need to do negative things to get rid of, calling the bank, doing things I don't look forward to. And then negative energy, I need to look for things that are going to attract me, are going to pull me to them. So I get excited about them and go towards them. So we need to focus on staying balanced, right? Using our positive energy to get things I don't want done, using our negative energy to get things I do want done. And that's going to help us stay in a relaxed, calm state, regulated. And so it's important for us to understand that these elements are important for us to exist appropriately in this world. Without these two things, we could end up again unbalanced, trying to cause drama, hurting the people around us, because we are not living the authentic life that we know we're capable of. We have to be able to be honest and say, hey, this is what I can do, this is what's going on, and then move forward, right? Honesty is key to helping save yourself, right? Without honesty, you're living in an illusion. And anytime you live in an illusion, you're going to have to keep perpetuating that lie because it's a lie. It's not real, right? If you're being honest, it's a lot easier just to tell them the facts and say this is how it is than if you're manipulating a system to try to get favoritism. So they've turned off the soul, but you can turn it back on by, again, working on the positive energy, working on the negative energy, and finding that balanced state for yourself. So we want to get to homeostasis, and that's how we activate again the soul, the personality, who I am. And if I work on my personality, what that does is that gives me the confidence to then engage with things as they come on life's terms. So I want to work on building my value so that I can handle any situation that might come my way, right? As I build this spiritual defense, as I get more in tune with who I am, this is going to allow me to handle things as they come and go, because now I know that I'm in that fulfillment stage. I'm working on myself and I'm confident in myself. So when people have been destroyed by this entire system, one of the things that we want to do is, again, go back to visiting, what do I want from life? What are my passions, hobbies, interests? What are my, my independence, my future, my self-respecting goals? And I need to align myself with these goals and say, this is what I want. This is what I'm working on. This is what I want. This is what I'm working on. So I need to work on the different things that are going to get me to the place that I want to be successful. So sometimes we have to work on certain things to get to that next element, to get to the next place in our life, to feel successful, right? So that can be a challenge for people, to be able to understand your role, right? What you play, and accept yourself, because that can be hard, right? But I will tell you guys this: hell on earth and heaven on earth are real, right? Because hell on earth is being surrounded by people that have lost themselves, are emotionally unstable, don't feel good about themselves, want to react to people, right? So we want to make sure that, we work on how to support ourselves when we're in these states of mind, and making sure that we balance ourselves out by, again, going kind of a little bit on the opposite end and applying it a bit, but not too much on the extreme of each end, so that we can remain in that balanced state, right? So your energy is super important, because, again, nobody can access it around you. And, like, again, hell on earth is being surrounded by these people that don't support themselves, creating what? A toxic environment, which, again, living in hell is being surrounded by a bunch of people that I would call demonic archons. When you're around people that are imbalanced, they don't take care of themselves, they don't appreciate their energy, they don't appreciate their time, they don't appreciate those things. Well, what happens? You end up in situations where then people don't know how to self-actualize. They don't know how to develop themselves. They don't know how to move forward, and they get stuck in this. And that's why energies are very important. It's important for you to understand what energy you're feeling, how you're feeling, what you're going to do about it. Because if you don't understand what's happening, then you could react to people, you could have problems, it could cause more deficits in the end. So we want to make sure we're on the same page and we're all working as a team to make sure that we move forward, right? So the energy that you feel inside, this spiritual energy, right? It's important to engage it, because this is what helps us get our passions done, feel drive, right? I'm going to break down the human experience a little more for you guys. There is feminine and masculine energy that has to do with these energies. So I was thinking about this the other day, like how in certain music you will see like a more lighter voice, like maybe like The Weeknd or Michael Jackson. And there's a lot of women that like these types of artists, right? These artists that I would say sing in a more feminine voice, right? A more high-pitched voice, a more fluid voice. Where someone like Eminem raps in a very masculine voice, very direct, very hard, right? So you can see elements and how this even affects just music, right? Just having these two in this situation, you're going to see now that these things can have a large impact in the way we communicate and we feel, because, again, the differences that we feel within ourselves, right? So masculine and feminine energy is different, right? Feminine energy, again, has that higher pitch, that more flow to it, right? Where masculine energy is more rigid and raw. That's why you see a lot of female artists, right? Women artists supporting that type of music, because it's something calls to them. That is where they go, because it makes more sense to the way they exist, versus a male artist who may not have that same flow state, which is harder to connect with them, right? It's harder to be in that state because you're struggling with that state yourself, right? So men and women do have different energies that they have. I like to think that men are the positive energy up top, because they're always trying to fix and solutionize, while women are like that negative energy, that feeling side. But we need each other. We complement each other. We need to be in our feelings sometimes, because that's how we get some of our outcomes. We need to be using our mind, because we need to get through certain things, right? So masculine and feminine energy are different. This is also to be said of, like, look, when men are doing things like to get more muscular, to use steroids as an example, this is masculine energy. So they're doing it for the other masculine men. They are trying to show off for men, okay? Because they're trying to get bigger as a man, which is the same thing that women say, I get pretty for women, not for men, which makes sense, right? So again, if a guy wants to attract a girl, he's got to act a lot more like a bird and show his feathers and shake him, right? Show him that he is worthy using that, what we could call feminine energy, right? The flowy state to attract a mate, right? And so for women, sometimes we need them to show a little toughness because we like to see that. We like to see a girl that takes risks. We like to see a girl that tries something that's a little more like, I want to do that. I want to give it, like, that's attractive to us too. We like to see that masculine side. Sometimes that masculine energy comes out. It's like, oh, she's like willing to give it a go, right? If they're too much in that feminine energy, it's too much into the feelings. It's too much into that side. And that becomes an extreme on itself. Just as much as if a guy's way too hard, it's not going to work for the feminine energy. So positive, right? This stress state is, you could call it masculine, while the depressed state is like a feminine energy. And we need them to blend together to be able to be successful, right? So when we go extreme in two sides, we lose ourselves too. We need to blend these sides together. We both have masculine and feminine energy. We both experience these things. Just to what degree and what way were we created to handle this, right? So just remember that. If you want to, just another thing that I was thinking about, another difference between masculine and feminine energy, you'll see this too. There will be women who will have a lot of one person. They get a little fangirly, a fangirl, right? A little obsessive. But when people have that, when girls have one poster of a dude everywhere, they're like, oh, she's in love. Oh, she really likes that guy, right? If she was to have pictures of a bunch of dudes, she'd be like, well, she's a little bit boy crazy. And again, it's because it's what they're showing, right? And so they're saying, okay, so in this world, right, if a girl has one versus many, there's a difference in how they're viewed. But the same thing happens to boys. If there's a boy who has pictures of one person, everyone in the room, they're going to start saying, hey, are you okay? Like, you seem a little obsessed here. Like, you seem like you really like this person. It seems a little extreme. Versus if he had pictures of a bunch of different people, a bunch of different women, they'd be like, oh, that's normal. Like, oh, he likes girls, like whatever. And there's a fundamental difference in how we are approached and how we actually exist within us. Because this isn't a phenomenon where girls get to like, oh, we're going to teach women to collect things and put them in their room. And no, this is coming from them. Even themselves, like, yeah, I kind of feel embarrassed. I had this really big crush. I had this really big obsession. That's coming from them naturally. So when we understand that we have differences, you start to understand the highlights of like, oh, even on energy, right? It's like frequencies. You have different wavelengths, different types of frequencies, right? Even though they're on a spectrum. And humans, again, we are on a spectrum and a continuum, just as much as people, like all other people are. But we have both sets of energy. And when we learn to appreciate both sets, we build a better connection with our partners, with the people around us, because we know how to appreciate the energies that we're bringing versus getting upset that you're not bringing this energy. You're not. No, we need to understand what we are capable of honing in on, right? Again, I can use feelings. I can be in my feelings, but that's not my natural state. Just as much as I could have somebody in my life that, a girl in my life where they're like, hey, I don't have that type of problem where they're more in their feelings and they don't want to think. They might say, where are we going to eat today? Or what's the plan? Because they're asking me to take charge and make decisions, right? So we are literally in different wavelengths. Another thing you can think too is if someone's in their feeling state and someone's in their thinking state, they're not on the same page. They're actually going to have a fight. And there's a reason for this. Feelings, this is objective. This is subjective. And when something's objective, that means it's a fact. That means facts are real, right? It's a fact. Versus a thought, which is subjective, which then again leads to this idea that it's made up to some extent. That's why you have to make up your mind. So if people are in their feelings, they're always going to be right because feelings are objective. So if you are talking to somebody who's in their feelings, the way to win the conversation is to both be in your feelings for that moment. And once you're both right, then we can think about what we're going to do about this situation. But first, we have to align with the emotional state. If you try to use logic on someone that's in their feelings, it's never going to work because you're not using the same thing. One of them is using their gut and one of them is using their brain. So all these different factors of things that I'm talking about all go back to the system that we are being little by little socially conditioned to understand extremities and less about balance. Extremities have a lot to do, again, with, am I overly stressed out? Am I overly depressed? They need people to be in disarray or, again, lacking that connection so that they can keep using the system to their advantage. It's like this idea that they have just enough for us to feel like we got it, like, around us, the illusion, so that we don't essentially break the fourth wall, right? Start to realize, wait a minute, you're only offering me all this stuff because you actually want this from me. I'm pretty sure if people asked, do you want to work 40-hour weeks? Do you want to work 80-hour weeks? Do you want to does this sound like it's normal to you? Does this sound natural to you? No, nobody's going to want to do that. That doesn't sound healthy at all. But again, it's not about that. It's about what? Profit margins. It's about what the companies are making. It's about utilizing this energy without ever showing you that they've been using you this whole time. It's like it's like those T-Mobile things or like whatever, like you go to this place and you get a phone or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the deal we're going to give you. But then you go to get that deal and they're like, oh, we never said that. That never happened. Which again is why I tell you guys, it feels a lot like we're in an abusive relationship with a parent that acts like a child or like an elder sibling than you do a government system that acts like a true parent. And that's another problem that we have. But again, we're being conditioned to remove ourselves from our own abilities so that they can continue to manipulate the masses because they're under one giant spell. They don't know how to find their energy and find their worth and put boundaries on and say, no, I am myself. I'm going to support this and I'm moving forward. And until we can reach a point where people start to realize that their soul is worth more than what these people are offering them, we're going to continue to be in a perpetual state of negativity, right? Instead of people having that ability to self-analyze and develop, they keep focusing on looking for this short way to blame others for their lack of their own discipline. They are looking to find and cherry pick what they can do to keep perpetuating this negative state. And that's something that you're seeing happening right now. People don't understand how to appreciate their energy, their spirit, their soul. They don't know what they need to do to regulate themselves to get up to speed. And they don't know how to appreciate the way they think or they see or they feel or whatever, because someone else is putting judgment on them and causing them to have that friction. So until people can self-actualize, it's going to continue to be a problem. And it's hard. It's not easy to self-actualize. Everything in your society has taught you the opposite, that these people care about you, that this is good for you, but it's all propaganda at the end. It's all manipulation. They're not actually trying to give us true answers. They're just trying to comfort us until they can go back to what? Doing exactly what they were doing. There is no incentive to change the system right now because there's so many people that still give into the system, actively giving into this toxic system. So that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with a situation where people don't know how to appreciate their time, energy, and attention. They're willingly giving it away. And remember one thing I said about the inferno on earth and heaven on earth? When there's an inferno on earth, people are willingly giving away their soul. They're willingly giving away. How many people have you seen, like, you ask them a question about politics, about Trump or whatever, and they really don't know. They don't have a lot of good answers. So they don't have a purpose of why they're doing it, but they have enough soul to what? To support it. Even if they may not agree with the actual things that have happened, the actual points, right? But they don't need that. They have their person they're going to follow, right? They have their person that I'm just going to trust their ideals. And that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with the situation where you have a lot of powers that be that have mastered manipulation and propaganda. And we have a lot of people that we could call asleep. And that's why it's called being woke, because when you're asleep, you're just part of the problem. It's when you wake up that you realize, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. That's not right. That's not right. That's not right. And you start trusting your gut again to make active decisions, to, again, trust the objective to then work on the subjective, right? So work from here and go here. But you have to trust your gut. Your gut's one of the most important organs in the body, and it has kept you safe for years, and it will continue to keep you safe as long as you what? Continue to trust the process. So it's important for us to take time, reflect back on what we're doing, reflect back on our own needs, and start practicing what? Being productive, finding fulfillment, and resting appropriately, and doing it within a timely manner, right? Get yourself together, build that value up, right? Know your worth. Because until you know your worth, you're going to be willing to just give your time and energy and attention away over and over again. It's by building self-worth that you're going to be able to sustain yourself long-term and get out of this cycle of living with like a cattle, living like a farm animal, right? And like I said, guys, we're being taught to be factory workers from day one. The problem is there's no factories, guys. They're not there. It's like you got trained to be a soldier for a platoon in a position that doesn't exist. So we have to work as a team, right, to be able to stabilize and get through some of these things. And then again, develop that spirit so that we can connect as a human species, right? Everybody needs to be on the same page for what they want to do with their energy and their outcomes, because without that consistency, this world can't play out. We can't be doing what we're doing. We can't exist the way we do if we keep giving away our time, energy, and attention to people that will never value us back. Like every time you buy a brand, that brand's never coming back. That brand's not going to support you. That brand doesn't care about you. But you tend to put your time, energy, and money in that brand, right? They never would return the favor. That's just not going to happen. Doesn't matter how many years you've been buying there. And that's the problem that we live in. We live in a situation that highly values profit margins and not the human soul, not the human spirit. And that's the biggest issue that we're dealing with right now, guys. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today. Definitely a new topic that we talked about. Thought I needed to get some things off my chest so that we can be on the same page. But yeah, guys, keep it safe out there. Trust your gut, work on your mind, body, spirit, work on your regulation, get rid of that positive energy, doing things you don't want to do, and get rid of that negative energy, do things you want to do. Remember, we are all both masculine and feminine energy. So utilize it at the right moment so that life can work out and you can find more fulfillment in yourself. All right, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Later.